Welcome back, everybody, to Do Space's 2024 Sustainability Summit. I'm your host, Michael Sowers, Technology Manager at Do Space. And next up, I need to shift my screen around a little bit. We have Hannah Renard Ganley, Director of Education and Outreach at Keep Omaha Beautiful. Hannah's current work there blends her past experiences in both formal and informal education settings. She's been working in classrooms, state parks, and nonprofit organizations for almost 25 years, encouraging everyone around her to be lifelong learners. Hannah has a strong passion for educating both youth and adults about the environment and building community through authentically meaningful, interactive educational experiences. Hannah, the show is yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So again, my name is Hannah Renard Ganley, and I'm the Director of Education and Outreach at Keep Omaha Beautiful. And I'm really excited to speak with you about our Trees for Tomorrow school program. But first, I'm going to briefly tell you a little bit about Keep Omaha Beautiful and our program, so you have an understanding of the many different things that we do in our community. Keep Omaha Beautiful was founded in 1959, making us one of the oldest environmental nonprofits in Nebraska. Although our name has changed a few times, the specific programs have shifted a little bit over the years. Our mission has always been consistent in that we want to contribute to a healthy urban ecosystem. And our core programs help us to achieve that goal. We have four main program pillars: environmental education, waste reduction and recycling, pollution prevention, and tree canopy improvements. We're a small but mighty team of 9 employees, and we work with people throughout the whole city of Omaha. Last year, we worked with over 5,000 volunteers, and we educate about 10,000 youth and adults annually. So we're a small team, but we have a nice impact in Omaha, I think. We work really hard to actively engage with our community and encourage everyone to play a part in caring for our urban ecosystem. So to kind of break down those program pillars a little bit, our environmental education programs, which are really at the heart of what I do, are centered around our school-based education that inspires youth in school and during out-of-school programs for grades K through 12. Everything that we teach is focused on environmental science, so it's very STEM-based. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. But it's very accessible to all across the curricula. So we work with art teachers and music teachers and in after-school enrichment programs and summer programs because it's so easy to incorporate environmental science into all of those different areas. We also spend a lot of time and energy into providing training and coaching for educators because we know that we can have a little bit of an impact working with the students, but we can have a much greater impact when we work with educators. So we spend a lot of time working on the training and the coaching for those educators. KOB also provides a lot of waste reduction and recycling education and resources to help people make informed choices. You can find the recycling and reuse guide on our website and watch many how-to videos on our YouTube channel. You can also search by specific items in the Omaha Recycling Guide on the website, the Omaha Recycling Guide website, which was created in partnership with the City of Omaha and First Star Fiber, First Star Recycling. So it is local to Omaha, and it helps you understand what your options are in Omaha. And we do feature different things at different times of the year. So the Recycling and Reuse Guide this time of year is shifting to feature different holiday recycling options or waste disposal options for different types of wrapping paper and things like that. You can visit omaharecyclingguide.org to find proper disposal information, including reuse tips and local recycling options for hundreds of household items. Nebraska is a state known for its water resources, with about 70% of the Ogallala Aquifer below the surface of Nebraska and nearly 80,000 miles of river. We see it as part of our responsibility to reduce the negative impacts of water pollution. We help to educate residents about our urban area with about actions that they can take to ensure that our local waterways stay clean and as healthy as possible. So I intentionally did not mention the tree canopy improvement projects because that's the bulk of what I'm going to be talking about today. And I will talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But before I really get into the heart of what I'm going to be talking about, just to kind of let you know what you're getting yourselves into. First, I'm going to describe our school portion of our Trees for Tomorrow program through the development and implementation of it over the last several years. My goals are that you'll walk away knowing more about this awesome program, which I'm very passionate about. And you'll also explore different ways that you can get involved, if not in this program, then maybe develop one similar in your own community, or how you can kind of discover some of the tips and tricks that we've learned and apply them to your own environmental education programs. In order for you to truly understand the school portion of the Trees for Tomorrow program, you first need to have kind of the background on the tree canopy improvement projects that we have at Keep Omaha Beautiful. Trees provide an amazing array of benefits for our community and the environment. And every year, Keep Omaha Beautiful plants hundreds of new trees in public spaces via our tree canopy improvement initiatives. We plant a diverse stock of native trees in priority areas throughout Omaha to strengthen our tree canopy's resilience to future pests and environmental changes. Our programs focus on targeting planting plans in public spaces, such as parks and streets along boulevards, to improve our community's green spaces. And as of this fall, we've planted over 3,500 trees in diverse trees in over 108 different public spaces through the tree canopy improvement programs. When we were developing this program, the Trees for Tomorrow program initially, we partnered with the Nebraska Forest Service and the statewide Arboretum to establish best practices for growing and planting, and to develop a list of native trees to Nebraska that are underrepresented in the Omaha area. And that work was really important for the development of our tree school program. Because we use that information when we apply to, or when we work with schools on what trees we're going to plant at schools. We first started working with the Trees for Schools program in 2019, which is when we piloted it with Nelson Mandela Elementary School. And we were all set to, it was a great program. We learned some lessons from that first pilot, and we were all set to launch the program officially in the spring of 2020. But then we got a little bit derailed when all of the schools closed in March that year. However, it actually turned out to work in our favor, because it gave us the opportunity to step back and reflect on what we really wanted the program to be. We get a lot of requests from people who want to plant trees at schools. It's something that a lot of people want to do. And we could have planted trees at schools and stopped there, or we could have dashed after every flashy light that we saw in related projects. But we had the time to really stop and think. And our mission as an organization specifically refers to education and service as primary goals. And we also were considered the fact that research shows overwhelmingly that the best ways to help young people become positive contributors to a healthy and sustainable world is to provide them with a combination of education, positive experiences outdoors, and service learning opportunities. And this helps them feel more empowered and encouraged to continue doing more. And additionally, there's also a lot of research that shows that helping students learn about their local ecosystems is essential in helping them develop a desire to take care of the environment as they grow older. So keeping all of that in mind, we established a really clear goal and objectives to meet our program, to direct our program, and to make sure that there was no mission creep. This has been really helpful in ensuring that we stick to our plans and not do everything for everyone. I highly recommend that anytime you start a new project, you start with stating that objective or goal, and so that you can stay focused. It's really easy to meander and get off track, and we had a lot of opportunities to do projects that were similar but adjacent to what we really wanted to do. And because we had the time to develop that initial goal and objective, we were able to really stay focused on what we wanted to do, and not get distracted by the other really important and really cool projects that we could have participated in. Our school program goal is to empower and inspire students to be stewards of the environment and their community by learning about trees and planting them in support of a healthy urban ecosystem. And what that really means is that we want to get the kids outside in their urban ecosystem. It's important that they really get a chance to see it and be in it, and to have a positive experience as part of it. We want the kids to realize that they, as humans, are part of the urban ecosystem and they play a role in it. With all of the fear and negativity that kids get from the news and about climate and their own experiences with severe weather that we've been having recently, we want to provide them with an opportunity to have a positive impact and have positive experiences, to show them that they can do something productive that will have long-term benefits to their community. Climate change is so scary and so global that this is something local that the kids can do to literally get their hands dirty and get involved. We also created really clear program objectives, and as we're working with different partners, we make sure that they're very clear on what our objectives are as well. And the objectives are that students will understand the environmental benefits of trees and how they enrich people's lives. Students will understand the importance of biodiversity and healthy urban ecosystems. And students will positively impact their local environment by planting native trees. And so those objectives really are at the heart of what we try to do with every program, and are features that are non-negotiable as we develop different projects in different schools. With those clear goals in mind, we developed a program that has 3 essential parts: an education program, logistics for planting on school grounds, which is sometimes a bit complicated, and a service project where students do the planting and actually get their hands dirty. We officially launched the program in 2021, in spring of 2021. When we're determining whether or not a school is a good fit for the program, we initially meet with the principal and the teachers to understand what their goals and interests are in the program, and we make our goals very clear. This helps to make sure that everyone who's participating is a good fit for the project. And because although we work really hard to make it as little extra work for the teacher and for the school, because they already have so much on their plates that they're already doing, this project is any new project is going to be extra work. And we want to make sure that it is that we're working with people who are genuinely interested in participating so that they can be as focused and dedicated to the program as we want them to be. From there, we figure out what their student needs are and how they want this to fit in with their school's curriculum. We want this to be integrated into what the kids are already doing, so it's not something different, but something that's a part of their regular day. We develop a unit, an educational unit that is based on Nebraska learning standards and grade level expectations, but also focused on the teacher's goals and the student needs. And we determine what the best fit is for the length of the unit, which varies from school to school. Sometimes it's, I think the shortest one we've done is 7 weeks recently, and they can go up to 16 weeks. So the length of the program completely depends on the time that the school has and where it fits in with their curriculum. And from there, we plan a tailored unit and write a student journal. So kind of what that looks like. For example, we worked with Gomez Heritage Elementary School with their 5th grade math and science teacher through the dual language program. And she was the science teacher, and she really wanted the students to be able to focus on the science and not feel inhibited by any language barriers, which was a challenge that she had working with the dual language classes sometimes. And so when we designed their student journals, we made sure that they were translated and they were provided to the students in both English and Spanish. And the students were able to write in their preferred language so that the language, the writing portion, didn't stop them from being able to do the science work. They could participate in the science experiments, they could do the scientific observation, they could write their responses, and they could write in whatever language they were most comfortable in. So that allowed them to then access the content in a much easier way. And then on the flip side of that, most recently we worked with Liberty Elementary, where the teachers were really focused on improving student writing skills. And so with them, we designed a journal that was specifically requiring students to focus on language, and doing activities such as scientific observation, where the students had to focus on writing a list of nouns or adjectives to study the different parts of speech, and to really get into the language arts elements of their curriculum. We print these student journals for each student, so the teachers have a form of assessment for the program, and also so the students can showcase their work in a portfolio at the end. Here's an example of kind of what those student journals might look like. They range in length depending on the length of the program, and the number of activities involved and what the different activities are. They can range anywhere from about 20 to 45 pages. On the left is a page from the dual language journal that we wrote for Gomez. The middle page is a journal from with an emphasis on language arts from the Liberty Elementary. And the page on the right is a demonstration or an experiment that the students participated in to understand how trees fit into the water cycle and help clear pollutants from urban stormwater. So the activities are designed to be very hands-on and get the kids outside and doing things, but it also matches what they're doing and how they're writing and how they're working in their classroom. The curriculum that we create for the school is specifically designed to include, like I said, a lot of hands-on activities. Everything is tailored to the school, but rooted in a foundation that we established to meet our goals. We want the students, just from best practices in education, we want the students out of their seats and moving and touching trees. And unfortunately, in a regular classroom setting, a lot of this is much more challenging to do. So it provides a really unique experience for the kids where they get to touch the trees and discover insects, really to learn what the insects are doing and using the trees as their habitat and realizing that there's a whole world of things happening right outside on their school grounds that they've likely been too busy rushing past to even notice. Environmental science is naturally cross-curricular, and we're able to incorporate science, language arts, social studies, math, and art, which makes this an ideal program for an elementary school classroom, although we've also worked with high schools as well. How much emphasis we put on any of these different curriculums really depends on the teacher. We want the activities to meet their classroom needs and goals. And so the teachers know their students really well, and they know where their students need assistance and need help. And so they help us figure out what the best fit is for the activities. And that's why it's tailored specifically to the school. So if you look at the pictures on this page, this first picture here is a photo of kids doing a seed dissection. We gave them rubber mallets and talked to them about tool safety. And then we used the hammers to crack open several different kinds of seeds. This helped them learn about the different parts of a seed and the function. And it was linked to a seed dispersal lab, which is an element in the fourth grade curriculum, where the students were learning about different parts of the seeds and how seeds travel away from a parent plant. We also strive to make everything we do very engaging and allow for student inquiry as much as possible. One day we found a praying mantis on a tree, for example, and rather than rushing the kids to refocus on the topic that we were supposed to be doing that day, which was measuring the height of a tree using different tools, we stopped what we were doing and we spent 20 minutes observing the praying mantis and discussing what it was doing on the tree and understanding insect anatomy, because the praying mantis just held very still for us and allowed us to really get some good observations. Our activity the following week was scheduled to be scientific observations of animals and insects and their interdependence. And so we just shifted what we were doing and we're able to do it in a more timely basis where the students were naturally involved. In this picture right here, what the students are looking at is actually a bagworm that we had pulled off of a tree. We observed it and then we used that to discuss the importance of the human element in the ecosystem, really getting the students to understand that they have a role to play in the trees around them. The trees need our help to survive in the city, and the students could see that they can play a role in that when they're looking at the trees around their school grounds. And if they see a bagworm, that they can notify the school staff that the trees need some assistance. So keeping that in mind and keeping that we really want things to be inquiry-based and hands-on, we also want things to be local. And we know that it helps having local education about the environment helps students to develop a desire to have a long-term interest in environmental sustainability. And so we do what we can to make the lesson specific to the local school. My favorite example of this is what we did with Howard Kennedy Elementary. They have Howard Kennedy Elementaries on North 24th Street or North 30th Street, and they have a geothermal field right next to their school, which is used for heating and cooling the building, which is a really cool and unique feature that not many schools have. And when we originally looked at their school grounds for tree planting, we thought that field, which was close to a playground, would be a great place to plant trees because the playground had no shade at all. However, OPS, Omaha Public School regulations, prohibit us from planting trees on top of the geothermal field. And so keeping all of that in mind, we developed a really cool educational activity that included an experiment to help the students understand what geothermal energy is, because we're working with fourth graders and They had no clue what geothermal energy was. So that was the first activity we did was focused on just an experiment to help them understand geothermal and alternative energies. And then we added in a debate so they could discuss what they would do if they were able to make that decision. Obviously, the decision was already made for them. They couldn't go back. But if they had to make the decision between planting trees in the city or adding a geothermal energy to the school, what would they do? And it provided a really great opportunity for the kids to explore different green infrastructure and how that green infrastructure can impact their local community. And for them, it was also an opportunity for them to learn about a really cool feature at their school that most of the teachers didn't even realize was there. And then, as with anything we do, we like to have some fun, kind of flashy wow tools for students to play with. And we love these tablet compatible microscopes. There, you can see on the screen right here. This is attached to the tablet. It's a little microscope that allows us to take the tablets outside, and using the camera feature of the microscope, the students can magnify things outdoors and can study the different parts of a tree, or study insects or flowers. In this photo, the activity that the students were participating in was actually studying the lichen and the different colors that were on the tree bark. But as they were holding the microscope up, they saw a drop of rainwater trickle down the tree. It had just recently rained. And they were totally fascinated by watching this drop of rainwater trickle down underneath the microscope. And that led us into kind of using that inquiry method that led us into a really great discussion about how trees help to slow down rain and how the ground soak it in. So their scientific observation naturally led us to a great conversation about the benefits of trees in the city. And that's really at the heart of what we're trying to do with this program. We want the natural inquiry of the students to lead to truly authentic learning. One of our goals as an organization is advocacy. And we do that frequently by providing education so people can make informed decisions. And when we were taking the time to really determine what was most important for our program, we decided that having a portion of the activities directly helping students understand environmental equity and environmental injustices, or environmental justice, was kind of a non-negotiable for us. And so it's incorporated into every unit that we create. For some students, particularly younger ones, we keep this pretty simple, and we introduce the idea of what is environmental equity and what is environmental justice through a read aloud story time and discussion. With other students, particularly some of the groups that have more time built into their unit through teacher-led winter activities, we include a more in-depth research activity where the students learn about how kids in other cities have dealt with environmental injustices. And we also try to link that again to local issues as much as possible, such as the new North Omaha Trail that was put in a couple years ago and is being expanded, and the tree planting project that KOB helped with along that trail. And I love this photo at the bottom here, not because it's a spectacular photo, but because it actually so clearly demonstrates that the urban environment is great for outdoor education. This is a photo at Liberty Elementary, which is, if you're not familiar with it, it's right in the heart of downtown Omaha. It's right across from the Children's Museum. And there's construction going on this street right here. And every single day that we were outside, there were construction trucks out there. There was once or twice where we actually asked them to stop jackhammering so the students could hear what we were saying. It was hard to work out there. And especially when we were considering that we wanted the students to recognize some of the human benefits, or some of the benefits to humans about trees, about how they bring us a sense of peace and calm. And we'd go outside, we'd hear these jackhammers and these giant trucks. But amazingly, the kids totally rose to the occasion every single time we went outside. They loved that they were outside learning. It was a unique experience for them, and they got to get really hands-on with what they were doing. And we would go outside, and they were super focused and attentive to the lessons, because they realized that it was really a special experience to get to do this. And so even in the heart of downtown, they're able to utilize, the one little area of green space and the few trees that they had on their campus to really do a great in-depth hands-on learning program. So kind of shifting gears a little bit from the education planning to the logistics of the tree planting. It took us a little bit of time to work out the logistics of planting trees at schools. It can be complicated because it's public property and figuring out who has the proper authority within a district to approve new trees, and then also figuring out where those trees go. It can be really complicated. So we have worked out a system that actually works really well. And first, we meet with the principal to figure out what their interest is. Where do they want trees and why? And after that, we do a walkthrough at the school to figure out what trees and plants already exist, what utilities might be located in certain areas that would prohibit us from planting in certain places. And then we work with the district to ensure that we have current maps and knowledge about future use. So we don't want to be planting a tree where in 5 years the district plans on adding a playground or adding an addition to the building. Sometimes if we know that there's plans to add a playground or add an outdoor classroom, we'll plant trees around the perimeter of that location, but we don't want to be planting in the middle. That's going to prohibit them from using the school the way they want to, or have a reason for them to remove the tree in a few years. We've also learned from experience that it is really helpful to have as many perspectives involved in this walkthrough as possible. Everyone from the security folks that might be watching for line of sight issues with cameras, to principals who have plans for where the garden club might be putting a planting box or knowledge of where a cherished tree was maybe removed a few years ago. That information is super helpful when we're planning where we're going to be putting new trees. And then we also try to include everyone to the building engineers who are the folks that are going to be out there mowing the lawn. And they have to get their lawnmower around the trees. We want to make sure that it's going to be possible for them to mow around the trees and take care of the maintenance around them without damaging the trees that we're planting. From there, after we do that initial walkthrough and we get everyone's opinions, we work with the landscape architect to develop official plans for the school. And of course, once we have it drafted, we go back and forth and make several changes based on feedback from different district administration and school personnel. Sometimes at this point, we're also able to incorporate a portion of the education programming where students can select specific trees or specific locations where we're going to be putting trees. And usually what that looks like is that the landscape architect will give us more options than we're actually going to use. So he may say, or the landscape architect may say, we're going to put a tree here. And here's 3 options for what we could plant in that location. And then the students can vote and select what tree species we'll put in that place. That's not always an option. Sometimes there's some limitations on what can be in a particular location. But when it is, it's a great experience for the kids because it increases the impact that they can have in the program itself. And then finally, we work with a nursery to not just obtain the trees that we're going to be planting, but also to have an 18-month watering contract for watering and maintenance to ensure that the trees become established and survive after the students plant them. That kind of gets them through kind of a critical establishment period. And usually after that, the staff will be able to take care of the trees with minimal maintenance. After the 18-month contract is up, it is the school's responsibility to maintain the trees, but we want to do everything we can to ensure the tree's success before we get to that point. So to that end, we're actually now starting a second phase of the program to help the schools with the maintenance and to also continue the education. We realize that through this program, we're actually providing the teachers with some excellent coaching and training about how to participate and how to lead outdoor activities and environmental science outdoors. And so we're now working with those teachers for kind of a second phase or second year where the teachers are leading activities with a new group of students. And so in the second phase, the teacher does almost all of the education programming. Keep Omaha Beautiful does not come on a regular basis to do the programming, but we do provide coaching and resources for the teachers to implement the activities. We also are printing journals for them so the teachers can house the students' work and do very similar activities to what they did when KOB was providing the programming directly. And then towards the end of the program, our educators return to the school to do a tree health assessment on the trees that were planted at the school, and a service project with the students where they remulch around the trees and take care of them, um, uh, and kind of do that second phase of maintenance. And it kind of gets the next generation or the next class of students involved in taking care of and understanding the benefits of the trees at the school. And then we get to the planting day, the third portion of our program. And this is really rewarding when we get to it, and really exciting for the students. We work out with the schools what the timing will be, and it varies in every school that we've worked with. We like to have at least an hour for tree planting because that gives us enough time to teach the students. But frequently it'll be 2 to 3 hours of tree planting time. And this includes time to teach the students how to properly plant the tree, and for them to plant the tree. And then also frequently includes a reflection time. For the reflection activity, we'll ask the students to do things like think about what they've learned throughout the unit, and then also to have some mindful moments by the new trees that they just planted so that they can really appreciate all of the really cool things that they're doing. We like to wrap up the tree planting day with a celebration. Usually the principal and Keep Omaha Beautiful staff will share some thoughts, and sometimes a few of the students are also asked to share their reflections. Again, this varies from school to school, but sometimes the celebration is just for the students who are participating in the tree planting. And sometimes we also invite family members to attend. And it becomes kind of a bigger audience so that the students can, so the families can see what the students have been working on over the past quarter or semester. And that really helps us when we are able to invite the family members. That really helps us to meet our goal of empowering the students to feel like they're positively influencing their world. It's not just their class, it's not just their school, but the whole community benefits from what they're doing. One of the really cool things that we're able to do through this program is that we're able to get the school's national recognition as a Tree Campus K-12 school through the Arbor Day Foundation. This is a really similar program to the Tree City USA program, which you might be familiar with. But it is specifically focused on K-12 schools. It's an application process where the school has to demonstrate that they're providing education to students, incorporating a service project, and working with local organizations to beautify their campus. And our program does all of those different things. So as of right now, all of our participating schools in our School Trees program have qualified for this recognition, which is kind of fun and exciting. Just because it's a really fun way to celebrate at a national level all of the hard work that the schools and the students and the teachers are doing. We have thus far planted trees at, we've had 12 different planting projects working with 10 different schools. We're currently working with 2 schools for the spring of 2025. And like I said, there's a lot of lead time. We've already identified schools for fall of 2025, although we're not 100% committed. We're still working on the finalizing that process. We are seeking schools and school applications for spring of 2026. So that kind of gives you a sense of how far out we plan this project. And that's because of all of the logistics of planting the tree program, and then also the tailored curriculum that we write. We just want to make sure that we've got all our ducks in a row for that. So it's great to hear. I'm really excited and passionate about this program. It's great to hear all of the wonderful things that I say about it. But I think it's also nice to sometimes hear what other people are saying. So here's just a couple of comments. The principal from Liberty Elementary sent us a note that said, "We're so grateful for this wonderful learning experience for our students, for your support in helping Liberty host additional trees. We truly loved every aspect of the program, from the organization and follow-up to the reliability and care you brought to it. It was all exceptional. Thank you again." A teacher at Pinewood Elementary sent us in follow-up notes, you made this quarter so interactive and engaging for us. You could see it growing every week, and how the students and now all the students want to do is talk with everyone about trees. We're going to make a video next week about how to respect and honor our trees. And the kindergarten is writing us a letter about them. This has been such a rewarding experience. What I love about that is the video that the students made, and the fact that the kindergarten was incorporated the trees into their lessons. That was all completely independent on the school's part. Those were not projects that we helped with. And so the school really took on learning about the trees and learning about the benefits of having a healthy urban ecosystem as a big portion of what they were doing school wide. And so it really was wonderful to see how the tree program with the one group that we worked with really expanded and became a bigger project at the school. And then a student at Gomez Heritage Elementary wrote this. This was part of the reflection that was written during the tree planting day. I see that the tree is short, but a bit taller than me. When I look at it, I feel peaceful, calm, and happy, very proud of myself for planting the tree. I think the tree is very beautiful, and I feel like the tree is happy that it is now planted in the ground and happy to get nutrients. Um, and then there's one other story that I'd like to share. I don't have a quote about it, but this was at one of the schools where we were able to let the kids select the tree species that we planted. The kids first learned about the different species options that had been approved, and then they discussed the features of the different trees, including what they looked like and their ecosystem benefits. And then the students voted on what they wanted to plant in a few of the different locations. They overwhelmingly voted to plant a catalpa tree near their playground. And I love catalpas. They're great trees. The mature trees have, if you're not familiar with them, the mature trees have kind of this really cool shape. And the trees, as they're blooming in the springtime, have a really pretty big white flower. They have these really kind of cool, long, skinny seed pods. A lot of people don't like them because they can get a little bit messy, but I think they're really fun. But the vote was so completely one-sided. And we do work really hard when presenting information about the different tree species to keep it pretty generic and not let our opinions influence what the students are doing. And so we asked the question, why catalpas? And one kid chimed in and he said, they have great seed pods. They'll make wonderful swords when we're playing at recess. And I thought, from a kid, that was a great response and it was awesome. But I also realized I wanted them to realize that the trees that we were planting, they're not seeds, they're little trees, but they're not mature trees. And so I asked them if they realized that the tree that we were planting, it would be years before it was big enough to produce seed pods. And these students would be long gone at high school or even at college before they really saw the mature benefits of the tree. And this kid did not even bat an eye. He didn't hesitate. He simply said to me, yeah, but the kids who come after us will get to play with them. And he so eloquently and so matter-of-factly and simply summed up and confirmed for me that what the program is doing exactly what we wanted it to do. He's understanding that he's helping the community for the future, and that that the trees that he's contributing would provide benefits for the students at his school for years to come. And I just thought that was such a great understanding that he had of what was going on. So on that positive note, I'm going to kind of sum up with a few tips and tricks that hopefully you can take with you for your own programs or your own projects. First, that I can't emphasize enough how awesome it was that we had the opportunity to take the time and reflect and really focus on what we wanted the program to be. When we were able to start, we were able to clearly say yes and no to different projects that were presented to us because we knew what we wanted. And we were able to clearly and articulate with various partners or different funders what the program was. And this also helped us to solicit funding through grants because we were able to say, this is what the program is, and this is why we're doing it the way we're doing it. And kind of along those lines, soliciting funding for the program is important, but it's also important to solicit funding that's for the program you want to do. There were several opportunities that we had to get funding for a Trees at Schools program, but they weren't exactly what we wanted. And so if it's at all possible, don't adjust your program to fit the funding that's offered. Take the time to be authentic in developing your goals and objectives. If you've done that, you seek the funding that you want and not funding of convenience or the convenience of an opportunity to partner with someone that lets you get distracted from your goal. Because I think that's where we get into challenges of mission creep. And I think part of what makes this program so strong is that we were so clear with our goals, we were able to really stick to our guns and say, this is what we're going to focus on. Another lesson that we learned pretty early on was that when we were working with teachers and a school, it's really essential that all of the partners are fully committed. Any project is that you do at a school is going to be extra work for the people involved, and so we want to make sure that the people that we're working with, that the school and the principals and the teachers are truly committed to the program. If they're not as invested, it's much harder to work with them, and it made it harder to engage them in the various logistics or the buy-in, and that makes it then harder to work with the students. And so taking the time with early meetings to truly figure out and make sure that this is a good fit for not just the school but also for us, to make sure that there's a recognized commitment on both parts, in our time in developing the curriculum and getting the planting logistics, and in their time in implementing programs and making time and space for us to provide the programming. It's really important to the success of the program. And I would say that that's true about any time you're working with students or with teachers in a school. And then another thing that I think is sometimes challenging is feeling comfortable with evaluation and recognizing when you need to change gears. I think it's so often we're very reluctant to say this didn't work out as well as we wanted. But if you're going to take the time to do evaluation, it's also important to have the courage to say that you need to shift and you need to do something differently that ultimately will lead to a stronger program. And all of those funds that we're able to get through clearly established goals and grants, by having these clearly established goals and expectations, it's much easier to continue getting funding when we're able to demonstrate that we're consistently evaluating and improving the program. Another thing that we have learned along the way is to anticipate that there will be complications, because there will always be complications. But remembering not to get too frustrated and keeping in mind that we can learn from those and use that as an opportunity for growth is really important. Planting trees at schools, like I said, is very complicated. And we have on more than one occasion walked in and thought we had everything lined up, and then there was some wrench thrown into the plan. But now that we've figured that out, one of the things that we build in is extra time. And we really build in lots of extra time so that we can anticipate what's going to happen. And doing things like when we're planting the trees, we actually call the dig hotline to have the utilities marked on 3 separate occasions at the school. And the reason for that is we do it once when we're doing the landscape planning, when working with the landscape architect and the walkthrough. We do it again when we're checking to make sure everything is where it needs to be. And then we do it again right before we actually dig the holes and plant the trees. And despite the fact that we do it 3 times, there have been times where on that third one, there's a utility that's marked in a place that we didn't know there were utilities. And so we have to shift things around. So that's where kind of having that extra time to figure out when we need to shift things is important. And also having the open relationship and the partnership that we have with the different partners, where when we have an issue, we can get someone on the phone pretty quickly so we can figure out the problems and figure out solutions, is really important. That gives us the time not just to get the work done and the communication to get the work done that we know we need, but also to make adjustments when it's necessary in an appropriate time frame. And then another thing that we have learned is that it's really important to ask if there's anyone else who needs to be part of the conversation, and to revisit that often, revisit that question. We've had several tree planting events where at the very end, we realized that someone who was not initially involved in the conversation spots a problem. And it's things that you wouldn't anticipate. So we, at one school, we knew where we were going to plant the trees. Everything had been marked for the 3rd time. Everyone had vetted everything, we thought. And then at the very last minute, a teacher saw the spray paint on the field and said, wait a second, that's the field where we play soccer on field day, and you're putting a tree right in the middle of it. And it wasn't a big deal to shift the tree. There was plenty of space in that location to shift the tree over about 10 feet, and that solved the problem. But we were able to think about how we were going to make those adjustments. And it would have been really nice to have those teachers involved in the conversation early on, because they're with the students on the field day and they're able to recognize those things. So again, just having as many people involved in the conversation early on. And then finally, celebrating the successes. I think so often, especially as a nonprofit, but when we're thinking about sustainability in general, everything always seems like it's on fire, and we're off so often in a cycle of just go, 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 that we rush from one project to another, and we do great work. We should take the time to celebrate it. One of the ways that we do that is by taking the time to not just say, "Oh, hey, you got Tree Campus K-12 recognition. Let me send you your award," but we actually take the time to go to the school and officially deliver the recognition. And usually those arrive over the summer, so we go back to the school the following fall after the tree planting has been completed, and we present the teachers at a school assembly or over morning announcements. It's always hard for us to take a morning away from other projects, but it's so worth it to really take the time to celebrate what the teachers and what Keep Omaha Beautiful and what the kids have accomplished through these really cool programs. So it's really important to take that time and to celebrate the successes because it energizes you for the next project. And with that, I'm going to ask if there are any questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. This was great. So everybody, we've got about 5 minutes for questions. We do have one from the audience. Bear with me, it's a little long, but it's not super complicated. This is Molly from Habitat Omaha. She says it's astonishing to see how many trees per school varies in the amount needed. And her question is, do you currently have a tree planting partnership with Habitat Omaha for our organization's new home construction, or do you only do this with schools? And what landscape architects do you use for consulting, and how much does that cost?
So, okay, so there's a couple different parts to that.
Yeah.
The first part is this project is specifically for public lands at schools, and so we do not plant on residential properties or what will be residential property. So we do not have a partnership there. Um, uh, and then the second part was about the landscape architect. So we have been really fortunate that on our board we have we have landscape architects, and so we've been able to actually have the landscape architects donate their time, and so they do that work as a volunteer contributing to Keep Omaha Beautiful. So it's one of the cost savings that we're able to include in the project is to get that work done at no cost to us, and also sometimes to provide some really cool benefits to the school. There's one school that we worked with where the trees that we were planting, their long-term plans were to install an outdoor classroom and kind of an arboretum that they could use for education in this particular area. And so the landscape architect who was having fun with the project developed a whole nature classroom in that space. It was not what the school necessarily was going to do because they didn't have funding or anything for it yet. But it provided them with a really cool resource of an option based on what they had said they were interested in, that then we were able to just give to the school as part of the package of what they got. So fortunately, we're able to provide them with a really cool resource at no cost to us.
Yeah, finding folks willing to donate their time and their energy is always helpful.
Yeah, it's so huge. It's so huge.
I was kind of guessing that's what you were going to say, but and they're on the board, so they're definitely well on with the mission.
Yep.
Michelle says no questions, but they'd like to commend you on such outstanding work. You've given me a lot to think about. So
Awesome.
I'll add one quick question, not seeing any others from the audience. Are you aware of other similar projects like within the state? I know we've got people not from Omaha
Mhm.
on the Zoom.
Yeah, so there is or there was last year a project through Project Learning Tree and the Nebraska Forest Service where they did a program where teachers could get training and then do a 6-week program. I think it was 6 weeks in their classroom to plant trees. I'm sorry, to provide students with trees. Those were trees that were provided through, I believe, the NRDs, and they were given to students to plant at home, not to plant at school. So they were able to kind of avoid that logistical challenge in working with a lot of different places. But the nice thing about that is it provided a lot of training for the educators to do to teach about trees in the classroom, and they did that kind of centered around Arbor Day. And so the trees went home kind of around Arbor Day to be planted, and that was a statewide initiative.
Gotcha. I think originally we tried to get somebody from the Forestry Service on this event today, and we just weren't able to work that out. But so thank you for mentioning that. I really appreciate it. All right, Hannah, thank you very much. Great presentation. I learned a lot. I hope everybody else did too.